What's up, IP friends? Happy New Year and cheers to a prosperous 2023. Now, welcome back to IP series Reader. I remain Rita Aunrichinda and I am the podcast host basically. So for my returning listeners, thank you first of all. I'm seeing the algorithms, the streams, getting notifications. Thank you everyone for sharing, for liking. And for the new listeners, thank you guys so much for coming to listen to me talk about everything intellectual property, from copyright, trademark, patent, industrial design, trade secrets, land variety, and geographical indication. Basically, I just give my conversation an African-Nigerian bias where I dissect cases, talk about trends, talk about development, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa and internationally. So I review a lot of cases. And if you would like me to review any case, please reach out to me. Send me an email to ipseriesinfo@gmail.com. You can also follow my social media handle ipseries_reader or at ipseries1, or follow my ipseries Facebook page. So yeah, let's get into our first story for this year. So if you write stories for filmmakers, or you write stories that can be adapted into a movie, a series, just anything that can be adapted, maybe like a stage play, a radio play, or can be broadcasted, this episode is especially for you because you are a creative. And like I've always stated, if you're a creative, copyright law mostly applies to you. Other laws are secondary and also gives you like a multi-layered IP protection. So I went on Twitter and I saw this story that was building up. It had a lot of likes and retweets and so many comments. So it kind of now took me back to when we had the living in bondage scenario during the pandemic, But this kind of this was a different scenario where the Twitter handle has stated she actually wrote a story. So let me just read her tweets verbatim. So she says, I'm so weak. I wrote a script last year that I sent to a popular person. He asked if I was willing to sell it and I refused. I just saw that the script was shot without my consent. My chest. Okay, let me just finish. Anyways, I am a young creator and I obviously can't go toe to toe with people like this, but it's not fair. It's really not fair, but just hear me out, okay? I mean, I do feel for creatives or creators when they keep experiencing all of these things, when they're being exploited or taken advantage. Sometimes you hear, I made this speech, I sent in my, samples, and before you know, it was reproduced and adapted. It kind of reminds me also of the First Bank case between the designer who had done that's the bank's 150th anniversary logo, and they used it without paying. I don't know how that case ended, but that was during the pandemic, and it was like hot, oku hot. But yeah, when I saw this, I just thought to myself, I mean, let me just take my time and do a bit of reading as to how screenwriters and scriptwriters can actually protect themselves, because copyright protects literary and artistic works, broadcasting, sound recording, pictures, photo, cinematograph works. Am I forgetting anyone? I don't think so. But if you are a Nigerian, know that take your time, read section 1, sub 1 of the Nigerian Copyright Act. Apologies, I'm citing sections this year, but I can't help it. But yeah, just read that section. It also goes further to state that your work must be original and in a tangible format, a fixed medium. That's how the law stating, and you get to enjoy automatic protection from the moment your work is created. So don't panic, don't fear, don't say, I can't go to with this person. You can, because the law already recognizes you as the first author and creator of that script. You get it? Yeah. So if someone uses your content. I think before I'm not big on social media color, but then social media color also puts some of these issues in the limelight, and then you have to do the advocacy and sensitization, awareness, education, and it helps. So if your work, let's say you pitch your work to someone and the person gets to reproduce it, or use it, monetize it, don't panic. Just verify that it's actually your work, because what before you go ahead to say, it's like you saying, oh, Emeka came to my shop and stole something because something got missing from your shop. So make sure that you are certain that the work in question belongs to you. What are the similarities? Is it so much? Is it too obvious? Is it something you cannot let go? Is it something that it's going to affect your reputation? Did they distort any part of your creation, your writing, your script, whatever your creation was, whatever the literary or artistic work is, or musical work or sound, whatever it is, whatever copyrighted work or element it has, verify that. If you put your work side by side, it's easy for someone to pinpoint and say, oh yeah, this is Howard's work, this is Rita's work. I mean, sometimes I see things like that where you put out something, I mean, no one can actually monopolize an expression of an idea, because as we know, intellectual property does not protect ideas, and copyright does not protect titles, short phrases, names, words, slogans, facts. It doesn't protect anything that is not expressed in a fixed or tangible format that we can see and say, oh, this is a literary work, this is a musical work, this is a sound recording, this is a broadcast, this is a picture, this is a software. You get my point? So verify before you start going around to cry wolf. Now, once you verify that it's your work, speak to your intellectual property lawyer or copyright lawyer or film lawyer. They will tell you, or they know the next thing to do. Don't feel that you do not have a cause. You actually have the right to enforce your intellectual property rights. The exclusive right that accorded to you. No other person can exercise those rights without your consent. So once you've established the fact that your work was expressed, it's not just an idea anymore, it was expressed, it was in a tangible form, it's original, and then you're relying on the automatic protection you have. And don't forget that when your work is in a tangible format or a fixed medium, that is a permanent proof. Like, no one can dispute it. We are seeing it. And then your lawyer would then do a cease and desist letter, giving the alleged infringer a timeline to come clean, make his arguments. Failure to do that, we're going to court to. So as difficult as it may seem, I mean, don't lose hope when your work gets used by a third person without your consent. Because one thing you should know, that one of the benefits of intellectual property for scriptwriters and screenwriters is that you get confidence of ownership, because the law already grants you automatic protection. You're recognized as the author of the work. So the law says authorship shall vest in the first person that creates the work. However, that authorship, or not authorship, now that ownership, owning the work, will rest in either the employer, if the person was employed and he was part of his responsibility, or the person was hired to do so. And in this case, I don't think Howard was either an employee or commissioned to actually write that script that got adapted. You also have have the right to earn. You have the right to also prevent third parties, like the film director or the movie director or producer. Let's see now. Yeah. Who went ahead to shoot or adapt the scripts into a movie. I think it was a movie, yeah, because I'm trying to read the message here. Without her consent. You also have the right to sue the person. You also have the right to be credited as the person that wrote the script. So don't panic. Do not panic, guys. Seriously. Now, as a scriptwriter, before you even email or courier that script, please take note of the following things. It's very important. That way, you're able to protect yourself in the event that this. I don't want to. I was going to say that this shit happens, but in the event that something happens, let's just leave it as at that. So first, you gotta make sure that you're not just pitching ideas or the concept of your characters. Like, okay, so there's this story that I have about let's see, some Ikwe. So there's this Ikwe myth or legend that I want to talk about. So the characters are going to be XYZ. It's going to be like how many plots, etc. You know, all the terminologies that you scriptwriters are aware of. And you know, don't just pitch an idea, because one, ideas are not protected as intellectual property, and secondly, you cannot monopolize how someone or dictate how someone can express themselves. So the fact that you hinted doesn't mean that you own it. You have to actually see the word. But then it can get a bit complicated when you're looking at the definition of authorship and ownership. You get my point? Know that your ideas cannot be protected. I already stated that. If you want credits, then make sure that you deposit a copy of your script with the Nigerian Copyright Commission so that you stay protected at all times. And that is because we do not register copyrighted work in Nigeria. We deposit. We have the depository copyright system, whereas in the US you ought to, or you have to register your copyrighted work in order for you to sue. Next, you have to associate yourself with the Screenwriters Guild, if we have any in Nigeria. I already talked about registering your script. So another reason for registering your script is that it is the best mode for determining chain of title. Like if they are trying to get IP clearance, do their due diligence, they can trace the ownership or authorship of that work to you. So consent to start from you. Oh, we heard you wrote the script or want to adapt it into a movie, or get a license from you of some sort. We'd like you to assign your rights, give us an exclusive right so that we can monetize. It's just let's I think a clearer example would be, this is not a script but it was a book. It would be the Bridgerton book. Netflix has the rights to it. Shonda Rhimes is, I think she's a producer. Hold on, guys, so that I don't mislead you guys. But I hope you guys get my drift as to what I'm trying to explain when it comes to all of these things. So Shonda Rhimes is the executive producer, but she's also a screenwriter, which is impressive. So that's someone that I think if you write scripts in Nigeria, someone you should look up to as to how she monetizes her creative work or her copyrighted work. So yeah, then next up will be that make sure that the information related to your copyright, that is your script, includes the title of your work, the year the work was completed, and you, the author, which for instance would be Rita Rich in that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Then save all correspondence or all conversations that you've had with that person. So in this Howard's case now, it's going to be very easy. Let's say you guys had it does an email like, okay, let's catch up somewhere. Save the email, print them out, give your lawyer, say see you. Then don't take any conversation for granted, even if it was done orally. Do not take it for granted. Your synopsis, the story, the script, the screenplay, the dialogue, do not take such information or such elements for granted. Especially if you're making a pitch, know that there are two things you need to consider. One, you are sharing a confidential information, and in your mind, you've assumed that that person receiving it understands how important that information is, and then there's like an implied fiduciary duty on that person not to share what you have shared, that's the information you have shared or the script you have shared with them, with a third party, without informing you. If the person fails to take extra precautions or measures to protect the information you've shared with them, you can sue them for breach of promise. You can also sue them for... Another thing to consider is that you need to tell your story first, just like how Howard did in her tweet. You also need to protect your script. In the event where you go to litigation, you need to protect the script because you consider it to be a confidential information that you shared with the receiver, hoping that they would protect it like you did. Then another very important thing to know is that when talking about confidential information, you need to know that confidential information are protected automatically, just like copyright. So you have things that you can use as your defense, whereby someone decides that they want to misuse the script that you had written. Then if this was done orally, in the event where, okay, you shared your story, so you shared the script, but it was agreed orally that, okay, even though I will not sell it, but I'm going to assign certain rights to you to develop my script for XYZ amount. Now, you have to follow up with a letter or an email for documentation purpose. So, sequel to the conversation we had, XYZ at XYZ place at XYZ time, just following up for, to see how far, blah, blah, blah. Just your lawyer will know what to do, basically. Your lawyer will basically know what to do and what to write, so that way you are protected in both hands. Also, take the initiative to ask for a written agreement. It may not be feasible to protect the pitch or your script, but just ask for a writer's agreement, or say a ghostwriter agreement, or whatever type of agreement that you feel will be comfortable with, that you will not feel like you are being exploited. Then you need to know that a script writer or screenwriter cannot monopolize an expressed idea which copyright protects. It basically cannot do that. Now, I read some comments where people were like, oh, you need to explore the option of telling the producer or the person you talk to sign an NDA, or advising screenwriters to always sign NDAs. Now, it's not like NDA is bad, but sometimes people are a bit resistant when you mention, oh, before I share this and you have to sign an NDA. I think that the smartest decision would be protecting yourself before getting into the room. But then, a couple of years ago, I did a research on non-disclosure agreement, which is what NDA stands for. And according to Anita Nado and Alex Vaughan, they stated that the characteristic of a good NDA is that it encourages compliance and non-disclosure by setting out clear terms and reasonable expectations from both parties. Also promotes efficient enforcement in the applicable jurisdiction in case of a breach, just like the one that Howard experienced. It can also be part of a broader agreement. So you can include, it's not going to be called a non-disclosure agreement, but it will be called a non-disclosure clause. So the onus is now, or the burden is now on both parties to do the needful, take their responsibility seriously, and comply with the terms and conditions. And three basic requirements of an NDA is that the information conveyed or shared is considered to be confidential in nature. It was done in confidence, and if peradventure where their information is being shared and it gets misused by a third party for commercial benefits, you can always sue the person. And things to consider when you're drafting a standalone non-disclosure agreement is: one, the governing law; two, who owns the information, duration and of the contract should be clearly set out, specify the terms or the steps that the parties must take in order to return that confidential information that was shared, either by destroying it or allowing it to elapse in line with the term of the contract. But at most, let it be time frame. So I'm giving you my script for 2 years. Afterwards, you return my script back to me. You pay your royalties, you do XYZ. No copies should be gotten anywhere. Copies should be kept anywhere. I need to be pre-informed about whatever. I know recently, in the US, there's conversation as to how they're going to some states are going to start considering non-compete clauses whereby you're not allowed to do the same line of business with your former employer, but that's not related to what we're talking about. But I just wanted to chip that in there so you guys can check it out. Sometimes it's best that you also see what's going on in the international space and see how you can try to create like a Nigerian standard or a guide that you can work with in the interim until your jurisdiction. I'm based in Nigeria, which is why I keep mentioning Nigeria. Until your jurisdiction provides like a proper law as to how to protect yourself. Then you need to define what the information is, what makes it confidential, how can it be used. I think that's basically it anyways. But yeah, I mean, I've talked about basically almost everything, but I never focused on what intellectual property is to script or screenwriters. Now, IP basically protects creative and innovative work that must be commercialized. It is also protected territorially. What that means is the countries that you protect. There's no one registration for all the countries. Because sometimes I get requests where people are like, I want to do like an international, like I register in Nigeria and I'm protected all over the world. That's not how it works. What we have is national registration, regional registration, and then treaties that can be enforced, and parties can, parties who are signatory to those treaties, contracting states and member states, cannot enjoy some sort of protection within those territory. So that's something that I think you guys can also take note of. But IP for screenwriters could either make or break how your work is done. It could also affect your sponsorship deals, distribution deals, budgets of the film. And we also need to understand that any idea expressed as a result of human intellect, and if there's been human effort and is original and creative, you know where to place yourself in terms of what kind of IP mechanism that you can explore as a screenwriter. So as a screenwriter, you are entitled to because it's a literary work, you have the right to reproduce, you have the right to publish to public, you have the right to perform it, to produce, to reproduce it in any material form, publish it in any translation that you want, make any cinematograph film or record, distribute it to the public for commercial purpose, broadcast or communicate to the public, make an adaptation, or do any translation or adaptation of the work. That is what you are entitled to if you own a literary work. So your script is a literary work. Take that into consideration. Now, in the event where it's been adapted into a cinematograph film, they also have their own right. You also have the right to be acknowledged as the first author in line with Section 10, Sub 1 of the Nigerian Copyright Act. Then Section 12 grants you the right to claim authorship in your work. You can also object or seek relief where in an event where your work was distorted, mutilated, or there was any kind of modification in your script that you did not like, that you consider to be very derogatory, that is, going to cause harm to your reputation and honor. You also have moral rights, which falls under moral. You also have moral which are perpetual, and you cannot assign it. But in an event where you sign an agreement and you assign your moral rights in perpetuity, Rita can help you. No law can help you because it's binding on parties. In an event where someone uses your work without your consent as well, it's considered to be an infringement. However, where the person who is being accused of being of infringing your work shows that he was not aware, or he didn't have, or he did not suspect that your work was copyrighted, then you, that is how now any screenwriter or scriptwriter, will not be entitled to any form of damages, that is in terms of getting remedies. So maybe you're asking for costs, financial costs, injunction, any remedy you ask for, or but you can be entitled to an account of profits in relation to that infringement. So if the producer's film goes to the cinema, and it makes loads of money, you're entitled to account of profit. So the law also considers you when those kind of issues arise. Then I wanted to also talk about the fact that there are different dispute resolution mechanisms that you can explore. So you can do like a mini out of court settlement whereby you try to negotiate, you engage the other party before actually filing a suit in court at the Federal High Court in Nigeria here. So you try to negotiate, it doesn't work. You try to mediate, it doesn't work. Arbitration is mostly for huge commercial disputes. But so I'll just stick with negotiation or mediation. Quicker, faster, saves you time, money, and you still maintain your relationship. Because social media callers, I've worked for a couple of people, like the girl, what's her name? I think it was Jenny. Is it Jenny now? I can't remember. The living in bondage case where she was originally contracted to do the logo, some logos rather, for living in bondage too, and she ended up being, was she fired? I can't remember. I don't know if she was fired, but then she no can't get the work again. Next thing, she watch film 2 years later, they see her logo, can't they cry for Twitter, say, these people employ me, say they no go use my work, or next thing they can't use my work. Twitter came to her rescue. The First Bank guy, I don't know what came of him, but internationally, you've seen issues where someone comes to Twitter or any social media platform, either Instagram or Facebook, and presently TikTok. And there's a huge social media outcry. The judges, the counsels for plaintiffs, and the commenters, the media, the press, everyone is talking about it. I think one of the disadvantages for me is like the cancel culture. Everyone is quick to cancel, like sharp, like we don't want to have anything to do with this person. Crucify him. Seriously, guys. But I think that's with the internet, it's expected. But then you now find out that people use the opportunity to learn more about how to protect their creativity and innovation. I commend the courage, but sometimes you end up doing so much harm to your case. But yeah, in the event, what I'm trying to say is that in the event that something like this happens in future to any other screenwriter or scriptwriter out there, or a creative or an inventor, whatever, you shall created an intellectual property. Your first point of call should be to talk to your lawyer. Social media will help to your point. Look at the... Should I talk about it? No, I'm not. I don't want to be tempted. But yeah, so you have options to explore out of court settlement, or go to Federal High Court. Now, if you're an agent in the film industry or any TV media industry, it's very important that in the event where you see a script that you like, please make sure that you clear all the intellectual property right by determining the chain of title. Like, do your research. It's like when you're writing something, you have to make sure that you acknowledge the right people, so you're not accused, not plagiarism now, but you're not accused of intellectual property theft or infringement. um Failure to do that will be a violation of the exclusive right that are granted to the script writer or screenwriter or the creative in this case, because consent, permission, authorization, it's very important. um it will also include things that should not be written. As an event where you sign an agreement now, the screenwriter can say, oh, you can't touch this part of the script, you have to leave it like that. um you know, you can rewrite this scene, you can't rewrite that scene. So they have basically have control as to what actually happened. This is where the moral right comes into place now, getting to detect what happens to their work in the event where they do give license or assign certain rights. Now, it's also very important to see that when you have more than one script writer or screenwriter, you can have joint authorship in either the whole work or part of the work. And if it's also a non-exclusive license, it can be controlled by copyright, which may be written or oral or may be inferred by conduct. So it could be that the producer or the person by his conduct had, kind of told Howard that, oh, we're going to a non-exclusive arrangement, but still you should have done the needful by pre-informing her. So yeah, I think I'm just going to wrap up here by saying, you guys, please, this 2023, we don't want, I mean, the cases will help us in getting more precedent, but please make sure that if you're having conversation with someone, involve your IP lawyer, your film lawyer, or your copyright lawyer from the early stage of writing. Like when you, like, okay, this thing in my head, this story in my head, now I won't turn on to script. Tell your lawyer, say, there's this work I want to work on, or what do you think I should do? They will probably advise you on the right way to do it. Also include copyright notices as your watermark. I was also going to mention screenwriters are entitled to residual income and not royalties per se when their works are produced or their past works are being reproduced. But yeah, that's what I read. Not read, but yeah, that's what I found out. I mean, you don't get royalties. Okay, I'm licensing my script to you to do X, Y. Either you sell the script or you're making money. But then when the work gets produced, you get what is called a residual income from your from the script. And then include the first year when you, like, the year you finish write. Well, for documentation, but like the day you start to write, everything is very important because you really can't trust human beings. Just shall use copyright symbols, create a copyright notice, because it kind of, when you do that, it reminds the person or the general public that your work is copyrighted, like, because the law is, the moment your work is created, it enjoys protection. So it just means that copyright, this work is already copyrighted. Even if you use a copyright notice, it doesn't require you to do a registration of some. So like I said, you can deposit a copy with the Nigerian Copyright Commission. And then it's the copyright symbol, that's the circle C, informs other people that you own a copyright in that work. I think I've said it before when I talked about the notice. It also indicates that anyone who wishes to use your work, that is your script in this instance now, must obtain permission from you, the screen or script writer. So yeah. We've come to the end of our first episode for 2023. Thank you guys once again for always listening to me. Don't forget, You can share your stories with me if you need my opinion about something, a case. I will always share my views, but that's after extensive research. But yeah, I remain Rita Anrichinda. Thank you for listening to IP Series with Reader, and see you in the next episode, guys. Bye.